Welcome back to Making a Murderer, my journal. And we are excited. We're going to be starting a new series. After listening to a lot of the people that are supporting this cause, they have a request that we put out something either daily or weekly. And so we thought, why not do a daily MaM reading? And with that, we talked a lot about all the documents out there, but a lot of people have heard of the CASO documents, the CASO Investigative Reports, but they don't have time to read over 1,000 documents. And with that, if they get like, let's say we break it off into probably like 24 pages at a time, then we'll be able to break it down a little bit for you and you'll be able to understand what's going on. And so we do have a lot of projects in the mix right now. Of course, we're consistently maintaining the Rubberducky Steven Avery Files.com library, and that will be going through a huge upgrade in the very near future. As well as another one of our projects is that we're working on remaking a murder. Now, that's not the name of it. We have secured a name, and we're very excited about that. And that is a very lengthy series for you guys that will be very informative, bringing the past and the present together and commingling them so that you can get a big picture of what really has happened overall in the case. And then we have a huge surprise coming your way. Um, and I'm not going to tell you any more about that. So I want you to relax and enjoy if you're working or if you're driving or if you're just wanting to relax for the evening. And we will work through the Casio documents together. Welcome to your daily MaM reading. And today we're going to do pages 1 through 10. Calumet County Sheriff's Department, page 1. CAD Incident LCA 051103 009213. Offense Missing Person. Reporting Officer Corporal Leslie Lemieux. Reporting Person Karen M. Halbach. Victim Teresa Marie Halbach. Suspect left blank. Citizen contact Thomas E. Pierce, Scott A. Blodorn. Date, time, and occurrence left blank. Location at approximately 1700 hours on 11/03/05, I, Corporal Leslie Lemieux of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, began the initial investigation of a possible missing person. The reporting person, Karen Halbach, said that her daughter, Teresa Marie Halbach, had not been seen or heard from since Monday, 10/31/05. Karen said it was unusual for Teresa to not have had personal or phone contact with her family or friends for this length of time. Karen said that she had been calling around to Teresa's employers and friends. Karen said that her daughter worked as a freelance photographer out of Pierce Photography, a photo studio in Green Bay. Karen said that Teresa was also employed as a photographer for Auto Trader magazine. Karen said the last time Teresa was seen at the photo studio was on Saturday. Karen said the supervisors at the Auto Trader magazine said the last contact with Teresa was a fax confirmation for her workday, which was received on 10/31/05. Karen said that it was unusual for Teresa to not have had personal or phone contact with her family or friends for this length of time. Karen said that she had been calling around to Teresa's employers and friends. Karen said that her daughter worked as a freelance photographer out of Pierce Photography, a photo studio in Green Bay. Karen said that Teresa was also employed as a photographer for Auto Trader magazine. Karen said the last time Teresa was seen at the photo studio was Saturday. Karen said the supervisors at the Auto Trader magazine said the last contact with Teresa was a fax confirmation for her workday, which was received on 10/31/05. Karen said Teresa lives with a roommate who is Scott Blodorn at West 3637 County Highway B, Township of Woodville. Karen said the last time Scott had seen Teresa at home was on Sunday afternoon. Scott had not seen or heard from Teresa since. Scott told Karen that Teresa's vehicle was not at the residence either. I spoke with Scott by phone. Scott said the last time he had seen or heard from Teresa was on Sunday afternoon at the house. Scott said Teresa made no mention of any plans to go out of town and although she worked out of Green Bay, did normally communicate and stay at the residence on County Highway B. Scott said it was unusual for Teresa to be gone like this without letting anyone know. Scott said that Teresa did have a lot of friends in the Green Bay area. I spoke with Teresa's supervisor, Angela Schuster, at the Auto Trader magazine by phone. Schuster said that the last contact she had with Teresa was a fax received of her workday on 10/31/05. Schuster said the timestamp she could find on the fax indicated 1300 hours. Angela said that she knew from the fax that Teresa had rescheduled some of her Saturday appointments for Monday. Angela said she was aware of several photo shoot appointments that were scheduled for Monday. Angela said there was a photo shoot scheduled with a Craig Sipple from New Holstein, a Beyonda from Two Rivers, and a George Zipperer of Manitowoc. Angela said that she did not know whether Teresa made all those scheduled appointments at this time, as she had not received a fax confirmation from Teresa as of yet. Angela said that Teresa was notified of jobs by phone, and most of the communication was by phone or fax. Angela said she did not have contact with Teresa on a daily basis, only as appointments were scheduled. Angela said that she was waiting for a call back from the appointments to see if they had indeed been completed. Angela said she would have become concerned by tomorrow if she had still not heard anything from Teresa. Angela said Teresa did have scheduled appointments for photo shoots for the Auto Trader magazine today. Angela said in checking those appointments, she was told that Teresa did not show up. Angela said they have not received any call or notice from Teresa that she would not be making those appointments today. I notified Investigator Wiegert of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department of the situation. Investigator Wiegert and I responded to Teresa's residence and spoke with Teresa's roommate. Page 3. Scott and her parents. They said that Teresa did not have a current boyfriend or any recent ex-boyfriend. They said they had been making contact with Teresa's friends by phone and no one had had any contact with her. Scott allowed us to enter the residence and showed us Teresa's room. Scott and several of their mutual friends had located Teresa's most recent cell phone activity report on her computer. They printed a copy for us which showed the last cell phone activity at 2:27 p.m. on Monday, 10/31/05. It appeared when looking at the minutes used history that Teresa had made phone calls to each of her appointments prior to her arrival that day. I called Teresa's cell phone number 920-727-4731. The phone went instantly to a voicemail with a message indicating that her voicemail was full. Teresa's family said that Teresa had only one cell phone that she used for personal and business use. We located several credit card and banking statements, a current photograph, and a personal journal for Teresa, which were turned over to us. Scott also allowed us to collect Teresa's computer, which he said was hers alone. Scott showed me her hairbrush, which I then collected a small sample of hair from the brush for possible DNA if needed. I had left a phone message with the phone number from the George Zipperer appointment requesting that he contact me. I did call the Zipperer residence again and spoke with the male subject who identified himself as George Zipperer. I explained the reason for my call and the Zipperer immediately raised his voice saying that the auto trader had trespassed on his property and he did not want any more calls from them. Zipper said he was going to contact an attorney if these calls continued. I asked George if he had made an appointment for a photo shoot to sell a vehicle with Auto Trader. George said no, he did not. George said that would have been his son. I asked George if it would be possible to speak with his son. George said he didn't know where he was. I asked George if his son lived there, and he said yes. George said he works 24 hours a day and maybe talks to his son once a month. George said his son didn't have a cell phone and he did not know how to contact him. George said he thought his son was headed to Alaska to look for a job. George said he was going to head to Alaska next month to do the same. George said his son works all the time too. George said the auto trader had been calling them and he did not request their services. George said he thought that they must be con artists. I asked George if he knew whether or not the photographer had shown up on Monday and was indeed on his property. George said he wasn't sure, but he assumed so because he saw an Auto Trader magazine on the kitchen table. George was unwilling to give me his personal information or his son's. I asked George how to spell his last name, and he spelled it Zizore. I asked George for his date of birth, and he said he forgot it. George then said that I had caught him on a bad day. George said that I had now upset his dog, which I could hear barking in the background. George told me that it was a mean dog, and anybody who came on the property better watch out because it would eat them, starting with the feet. Page 4. George said he worked hard and did not have time for this. George said someone was driving up his driveway now and he had to go. I asked George to contact me if he had any further information. An attempt to locate was issued for Teresa Halbach and her vehicle, a 1999 Toyota RAV4 dark green, registration number SWH 582. Registered to Teresa. Teresa was also entered as a missing person. The local news media was notified. They assisted in broadcasting the attempt to locate for Teresa on the nightly news broadcast. At approximately 0030 hours on 11/04/05, I received a phone call from Teresa's coworker at Pierce Photography. I spoke with the photo studio owner, Thomas Pierce. Thomas said that the last time he saw Teresa was at the studio on Saturday. Pierce said that both he and Teresa did freelance photography. He said Teresa was not as much of an employee, but a coworker, independent photographer. Pierce said Teresa did not work at the studio every day. Pierce said Teresa had worked there for the last 3 or 4 years. Pierce said he became concerned today as he had not seen or heard from her since Saturday. Pierce said he had expected her to at least stop by Wednesday morning, as she was a member of the ladies' business group. Pierce said it was unlike Teresa not to stop in or at least call every few days. Pierce said Teresa had always called if she was going to be out of town or unavailable for work. Pierce did say that Teresa had mentioned to him several odd occurrences while working for the Auto Trader magazine. He said Teresa told him she had had some problems with male clients over the summer after the photo shoot, and while filling out paperwork and taking payment, she often was invited into their homes. He said Teresa said some males became verbally or physically flirtatious, offering her drinks, etc. Pierce did say Teresa had mentioned she had been receiving multiple calls from an unfamiliar number to her cell phone recently. The caller would never leave a message. Pierce said, as far as he knew, Teresa had not answered any of those calls and did not know the caller. Pierce said he remembered one day her commenting when the phone rang. Again, the same number. They just called 5 minutes ago. Pierce said Teresa said she did not recognize the number and did not answer. Leslie Lemieux, Corporal, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 5. Type of activity: interviews of Karen M. Halbach, Thomas A. Halbach, Scott A. Blodorn, Craig J. Sipple, and Stephen P. Schmitz. Date of activity 11/03/05. Reporting Officer Investigator Mark Wiegert. On 11/03/05 at approximately 17:30 hours, I, Investigator Mark Wiegert of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, received a phone call from Corporal Lemieux of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Corporal Lemieux was requesting my assistance in locating a missing person by the name of Teresa Halbach. I requested that Corporal Lemieux respond to my office so I could speak with her reference this incident. Page 6. When Corporal Lemieux arrived, she informed me that Teresa Halbach had been reported as missing by her mother, Karen. Corporal Lemieux also informed me she had already spoken with Angela Schuster from the Auto Trader magazine, who gave her 3 names of appointments that Teresa was supposed to be at on Monday. Corporal Lemieux gave me the names of Craig Sipple, Beyonda, and George Zipper as people that Teresa was to meet with on Monday. At approximately 17:55 hours, I did make contact with Craig Sipple. Craig stated they, in fact, had contacted Auto Trader magazine to take pictures of a car he and his friend Steven Schmitz had for sale. Craig states the vehicle, which was for sale, was located at Steven's residence in the village of St. Anna. Craig said he did not talk with the photographer or see the photographer that day, and gave me the name of Steven Schmitz and told me I should contact Steven. That was the end of my conversation with Craig. At approximately 1800 hours, I did make phone contact with Steven P. Schmitz. Steven states he and Craig have a car they own together and were selling through the Auto Trader magazine. According to Steven, he received a phone call from Teresa Halbach at approximately 1:10 p.m. on Monday, 10/31/05. Steven told me Teresa arrived at his residence at North 253 County Highway A, New Holstein, between the hours of 1:30 p.m. and 1:45 p.m. on Monday, 10/31/05. Steven told me she was driving a blue SUV, possibly something like a Pathfinder. He told me the vehicle looked very new. I asked Steven what the photographer Teresa would have been wearing. He stated she was wearing blue jeans, a white button-down shirt with a summer jacket, unknown color. Steven states Teresa took pictures of the vehicle that he and Craig had for sale, and he wrote her out a check. Steven states Teresa got back in her vehicle, and the last time he saw her, she was headed north on County Highway A. I asked Steven if there was anything unusual about Teresa when he spoke with her. He stated there was not, and she had just taken the pictures and left. That was the end of my contact with Steven. Corporal Lemieux and I responded to Teresa's residence at the address of West 3637 County Highway B. Upon arrival, we were led into the residence which Scott and Teresa rent. Scott states he had talked to Teresa last on Sunday afternoon, 10:30:05, at about 2 p.m. I asked him what they had talked about, to which Scott stated they had talked about the Halloween parties they had both attended over the weekend. I asked Scott if she had talked about what she was going to be doing on Halloween the 31st, to which Scott stated she did not mention anything to him. Scott states they are just roommates and they do not check in with each other and only talk if they happen to meet each other in the house. He states they basically both live their own lives out of that house. Scott if Teresa had a boyfriend, to which Scott stated she did not. Scott has lived with Teresa for approximately 8 or 9 months. He did state to me he does not, page 7, remember Teresa ever being gone overnight, and her not being there since Monday is very out of character for her. He also stated he noticed on Tuesday Teresa's truck was also not anywhere to be found at the house. I asked Scott what he thinks might have happened, to which Scott states he really does not know. He just knows that this is out of character. He was thinking that maybe she had met a guy when she was out over the weekend. However, she did not mention that when he last spoke with her. Scott did tell me that he was aware that on Saturday night Teresa had been at a Halloween party in Green Bay. He also stated Teresa hangs out in Green Bay a lot and has a lot of friends from Green Bay. I asked Scott if Teresa was on any medications that he was aware of, to which he stated he did not believe so. He also stated Teresa was always in good spirits and this would be very out of characteristic for her to be gone this long and not notify somebody. He also told me Teresa is very tight with her family. I then briefly met with Teresa's parents, Karen and Thomas Halbach. Both Karen and Thomas also informed me this was very out of character for Teresa to be gone this long without notifying somebody. Karen stated Teresa is very family orientated, and she also coaches volleyball for Sacred Heart Catholic School. Both the parents, Thomas and Karen, give us permission to go in and search Teresa's bedroom for any clues as to where she might have gone at that time. It should be noted Scott and several of Teresa's friends had also arrived at the scene at that time. They did print us a copy of Teresa's cell phone activity from Teresa's computer. It should be noted Teresa would use Singular Wireless as her cellular phone provider. The number for her cell phone would be 920-737-4731. The last phone call listed on Teresa's account would have been on 10/31/05 at 2:27 p.m. It indicates it is an incoming phone call from 414-425-8712. In doing a reverse directory on that phone number, it came back to Auto Trader magazine. A second last phone call on 10/31/05 would have been at 2:13 p.m. and was a voicemail at the number 414-534-0037. The third last phone call on 10/31/05 would have been to Manitowoc number 920-682-5719. In doing a reverse directory, it came back to a George Zipperer. The fourth last phone call on 10/31/05 would have been at 12:51 p.m. to a Kiel phone number of 920-894-3912, which would come back to a Stephen Schmitz. The fifth last phone call at 12:44 p.m. would be an incoming from the phone number 920-254-6635, unknown at that time whose phone number that would have been. The sixth last phone number would have been at 12:39 p.m. on 10/31/05 to 414-534-0037, which indicates it was to voicemail. The next previous phone call would have been on 10/31/05 at 11:43 a.m. to 920-755-8715, which lists to a Steve Avery. We were allowed to take several items from Teresa's residence by her roommate, Scott, and Teresa's parents. We did take a current photograph, several credit card and banking statements, and a personal journal belonging to Teresa. Which we had taken was hair from a hairbrush, which Scott had stated to us was Teresa's hairbrush. The hair would have been taken into custody and placed under property tag number 7826. The personal journal, which we had collected, was placed under property tag number 7824. The financial records were placed under property tag number 7825. At that time, I contacted the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and spoke with Sergeant Andrew Colburn. I informed Sergeant Colburn we were investigating a missing persons complaint. I also informed Sergeant Colburn that we had two residents we would like to have checked, one being the Steven Avery property and the second one being the George Zipper property. Sergeant Colburn indicated to me he would go over and attempt contact with Mr. Avery. I also received a phone call from Manitowoc County Lieutenant Jim Link. I informed him of the situation. Lieutenant Link informed me he would call some people in and assist us in the investigation. At that time, I did contact Investigator Dietering, who went to Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department and then eventually met with George Zipperer. For more information on that, please see Investigator Dietering's report. I did receive a phone call back from Sergeant Colburn indicating he, in fact, had spoken with Stephen Avery. Sergeant Colburn informed me Stephen had told him Teresa had shown up on Monday afternoon and took some pictures of his van that was for sale. He also informed me Stephen was not sure on what day it was and did not know what time Teresa had shown up at his residence. Sergeant Colburn also informed me that Yonda information would be Stephen's sister, Barbara Yonda, and she would live right next door to Stephen. That was the end of my conversation with Sergeant Colburn. I left Teresa's residence and went back to the Sheriff's Department. Investigator Mark Weger, Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Page 9. Type of activity. Research cellular provider information for Teresa Halbach. Date of activity 11/03/05. Reporting officer Investigator John Dietering. Documents generated. On Thursday, 11/03/04 at 17:30 hours, I. Dietering was alerted by Investigator Wiegert of a missing person who is a resident of Calumet County. Wiegert indicated that Teresa Halbach had been last seen on Monday, 10/31/05, and that her parents had recently reported her missing. Wiegert did provide me with Ms. Halbach's cellular telephone number 920-737-4731. PhoneFinder.com, an internet service, indicated that the phone number was originally a Verizon wireless number. At 17:50 hours, I did contact Verizon Wireless after determining through PhoneFinder.com that Teresa's cellular number was issued by Verizon Wireless. I questioned Verizon as to whether they could ping an attempt to determine the location of the phone. I was advised that the phone number is no longer an active account and that they were unable to provide me with who the telephone number is ported to. I was advised to contact 866-245-9007 as they could possibly give me further information on this. I was also advised that yellowpages.com could possibly provide me with the current provider of service for the phone number listed to Teresa Halbach. At 1800 hours, I was advised by Colonel Lemieux that she had determined that Teresa Halbach's cellular number may have been ported to Singular Wireless. I did contact Singular at 866-246-4852. I was advised that they do currently provide cellular service for Teresa Halbach at the phone number listed. I questioned the representative I spoke with as to whether we could get the phone number pinged, and the representative advised that this could possibly be done by contacting Singular Wireless Legal Department at 800-635-6840. I contacted the phone number provided and was also advised that Singular does not have the technology to ping a phone. I was told the only way we could possibly determine the location of Mrs. Halbach's cellular phone would be if she was placing an outgoing phone call or receiving an incoming phone call, and that would allow Singular's technology to locate the tower she was calling from. I was advised that any other information regarding Teresa Halbach's cellular phone records would have to be obtained via subpoena or court order. The individual I spoke with, Deanna, indicated that I should fax a court order or subpoena to 888-938-4715 and to mark the subpoena urgent. Deanna also indicated that I should recontact the legal department to page 10. Advise them that the subpoena is en route. She did indicate that I could possibly facilitate this matter by marking the subpoena exigent. Investigator Wiegert had apparently made access to Teresa Halbach's cellular wireless telephone records via internet and learned that there was the following activity on Teresa Halbach's cell phone on 10/31/05, the last day she was seen. 11:04 a.m., a call to her voicemail number of 414-534-0037. At 11:27 a.m., a call to her voicemail at 414-534-0037. 11:31 a.m., an outgoing call to a Green Bay number 920-405-1998. 11:35 a.m., an outgoing call to Green Bay number 920-360-2455. 11:43 a.m., an outgoing call to a Mishcot number 920-755-8715. 12:39 p.m., a call to voicemail 414-534-0037. 12:44 p.m., incoming call from 920-254-6635. 12:51 p.m., an outgoing call to the Kiel Exchange 920-894-3912. 2:12 p.m., an outgoing call to Manitowoc Exchange 920-682-5719. 2:13 p.m., a call to a voicemail 414-534-0037. 2:27 p.m., an incoming call from 414-425-8712. I did an internet search for the numbers and discovered that 920-405-1998, the call placed at 11:31 a.m., came back to a Daniel Morrow, 3030 Sonora Court, Green Bay, Wisconsin 54313. I was unable to locate any information for the 920-360-2455 exchange. The 920-755-8715 listed to a Thomas Yonda, 12 930 Avery Road, Two Rivers, Wisconsin 54241. The phone call placed to the Kill Exchange 920-894-3912 at 2:51 hours listed to a Stephen and Linda Schmitz, North 253 County Highway A, New Holstein, Wisconsin. The outgoing call placed in the Manitowoc Exchange 920-682-7519 at 2:12 p.m. listed to the Zipper Home Improvement, 4433 County Highway B, Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I was unable to get any information from the internet on the last incoming call, 414-425-8712. Shortly after speaking with Singular Wireless, Investigator Uyghur requested that I proceed to Manitowoc Sheriff's Department in an attempt to contact the last two subscribers to the last two phone numbers she had placed calls. Apparently, it had been determined Mrs. Halbach had contacted the Schmitz residence, had performed some photography work, and had left the Schmitz residence. Investigation continues. Alright, so that was our first 10 pages of the CASO Investigative Report. And let's take a few minutes to chat. Karen said that Teresa had not been seen or heard from since Monday, 10/31/05. Yet Karen also stated Scott Blodorn, Teresa's roommate, had last seen Teresa Sunday, 10/30/05. Who had seen or heard from Teresa on Monday, 10/31/05? Angela Schuster at Auto Trader said she was aware of several photo shoot appointments that were rescheduled for Monday, 10/31/05. She also stated that Teresa had appointments for Thursday, 11/03/05 and did not show up. Why is it later reported that Teresa only works for Auto Trader on Mondays? Teresa's friends had located Teresa's most recent cell phone activity report on her computer that showed the last cell phone activity at 2:27 p.m. on Monday, 10/31/05. A reverse lookup of that number came back to Auto Trader magazine. 11:03/05, when Corporal Leslie Lemieux called Teresa's cell phone, a message was received indicating her voicemail was full. George Zipper stated that Auto Trader had been calling him and that he did not contact them. He stated they must be con artists. He said he saw an Auto Trader magazine on the kitchen table but had not seen the girl. He threatened that if anyone came on the property, his dog would eat them, starting with the feet. An attempt to locate was issued on Teresa's 1999 Toyota dark green RAV. If Teresa's vehicle was Mystic Teal, a blue-green, why would her family not correctly identify the color of her vehicle? Uyghur reported Craig Sippel stated the vehicle he and Stephen Schmitz were having Teresa photographed was in St. Anna. Stephen Schmitz stated that he received a phone call from Teresa at 1:10 p.m. at 1:10 p.m. on 10/31/05. Teresa's phone records indicate the call was actually at 12:51 p.m. from a Kiel phone number. Stephen Schmitz stated that Teresa arrived at his residence, New Holstein, between 1:30 p.m. and 1:45 p.m. Why did Teresa go to Stephen Schmidt's residence in New Holstein if the vehicle she was to photograph was located in St. Anna? Stephen Schmitz stated Teresa was driving a blue SUV, possibly something like a Pathfinder. Why would an attempt to locate be put out on a dark green Toyota RAV4, but Stephen Schmitz states she was driving a blue SUV? Stephen Schmitz states she took pictures of the vehicle and he wrote her out a check. Last, he said he saw her. She was heading north on County Highway A. During trial, an investigator states he saw the check, yet the check is not in evidence. Why? Detective Uyghur and Colonel Lemieux went to Teresa's home. Scott Blodorn, Teresa's roommate, stated he had last seen her on Sunday, 10:30:05, around 2 p.m. He stated Teresa had attended a Halloween party on Saturday night, 10:29:05, in Green Bay over the weekend. Yet he then goes on to say that he does not ever remember Teresa being gone overnight. Scott stated that he noticed Tuesday 11:01:05 Teresa's truck was nowhere I'm sorry, Teresa's truck was not anywhere to be found at the house. Why did he say not anywhere to be found? Had he been looking for her on Tuesday 11:01:05? A phone call at 11:43 a.m. is 920-755-8715, which lists to a Steven Avery. This number is verified as a resident landline at the Barb Yonda home, Steven Avery's sister, and the phone number was registered as belonging to Thomas Yonda, Barb's husband at the time. Barb would have been at work, Brendan and Blaine at school at the time. Bobby Dassey, Brendan's brother, would have been home at that time. Scott Tadic's truck was seen by an eyewitness at the Yonda residence around this time, according to Miss Zellner. Uyghur and Lemieux took several items from Teresa's home, including hair from her hairbrush, and tagged property 7826, Teresa's personal journal property tag 7824, and financial records placed under property tag 7825. Buccal swab of saliva is rich in DNA. Why not take her toothbrush as well? Andrew Colburn goes over to Steven Avery's residence, but does not mention checking out Zipper's residence. Sergeant Colburn reported Steven said the girls showed up, taken pictures of the van, and then left. Colburn reported that the Yonda information was Steven's sister and that she lived right next door. Jim Link volunteers to call some people in and assist with the investigation. Why is Lieutenant Link volunteering when he was just depositioned in Steven Avery's civil case with Manitowoc County? Detective Dietering pays a visit to the Zipper residence. Lemieux contacts Teresa's cell phone provider, Singular Wireless, at 6 o'clock p.m. Dietering follows up and reports her phone cannot be pinged unless an incoming or outgoing call were to occur. He also learns Singular Wireless would require a subpoena for more information to be released. Investigator Uyghur had made access to Teresa's telephone records via the internet. 11:31 a.m. call had been Daniel Monroe. 11:43 a.m. was listed to Thomas Yonda. 12:51 hours was listed to Stephen and Linda Schmitz, and 2:12 p.m. was listed to the Zipper Home Improvement. Tom Pierce, Teresa's Green Bay boss, stated he had not heard from Teresa since Saturday, 10/29/05. He stated Teresa had some problem with flirtatious men clients over the summer and that she was getting unknown phone calls. That concludes our daily MaM Read of the CASO Investigative Reports. We went from page 1 to page 10. Please stay tuned tomorrow and we will pick up where we left off on page 11 and read through page 20. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video and you want to hang out with us a little bit, feel free to join us on our Discord channel, and we will be sure and list that in the description below for you, that you can click it and come visit us in the Puddle chat room. There is voice as well as text there, and a lot of RD researchers are available that hopefully they can answer your questions or at least have a discussion with you. We invite you also to follow us on Twitter, and we want to thank you for tuning in today and hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you for subscribing, and if you want to stay in tune, hit that bell. All right, guys, it is time. If you didn't do the crime, you shouldn't do the time. Have a great night. Talk to you tomorrow.